The New England Patriots defense needs a lot of help when it comes to their pass rush. But as luck would have it, the NFL's best player when it comes to getting after the quarterback might be there for the taking. Stick around. You're about to be locked in to the Locked On Patriots podcast.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all of you Foxborough faithful. Thank you once again for making Locked On Patriots a daily part of your New England Patriots coverage. I'm your host, Mike Debate. I cover your New England Patriots for Patriots Country. So reach out to me. Let me know what's on your mind on X at MDABATENFL. You can reach me over where the skies are blue on Blue Sky at MDABATENFL.bsky.social. And of course, if you want to show some love to Locked On Patriots social media style, please follow our account there as well at LO_Patriots. And Pats fans, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Pats fans, thank you for joining us here today on this Tuesday episode of Locked On Patriots. Today here on the pod, we're going to play a game of should they or shouldn't they. That's right, folks. Cleveland Browns defender Myles Garrett and Los Angeles Rams receiver Cooper Kupp each have confirmed themselves to be on the trade market. Should the New England Patriots be actively pursuing either, both, or neither? Yeah, two of the NFL's elite players at their positions are there for the taking. What should be the Patriots' interest? And lastly, here on the pod, we're going to be providing our thoughts on the Patriots' reported hiring of former New York Jets coach Todd Downing as the new receivers coach under Mike Vrabel. Was this the right move? Are they going to regret the hire? Or are they going to really regret leaving someone like Wes Welker on the table? All of these topics and more covered right here on Locked On Patriots today. And of course, I keep saying we because joining me here is my Patriots Paisan, our resident voice of reason here on Locked On Patriots, Steve Balestrieri of PatsFans.com and the Patriots 4th and 2 podcast. Thanks so much for joining me here today, bud. Welcome back. We need that reason more than ever today.
Well, it's great to be back. And there's a lot of interesting things happening around the NFL. And as we all know, I mean, once the Super Bowl's over, teams are going to start making decisions on who they want to keep and who they want to let go. And, you know, that's going to be the talk until free agency hits.
Absolutely. It will be the talk until free agency hits, and it's already starting here in New England. Steve, let's begin with the news of the day, I believe. Six-time All-Pro, former NFL Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett, has requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns. Now, there's no question about this. He is going to be very highly coveted on the trade market. The Patriots, it's a different story right now with them. They have the resources in terms of draft capital. They have the resources in terms of salary cap space, and they really could be among the teams that is actively pursuing Myles Garrett right now on the trade market. He's only 29 years old, Steve. I mean, there's nothing not to love about this kid. He's been a double-digit sack producer in each season except for his rookie year. He has 103.5 total sacks in 120 regular season and playoff games. That is as impressive as it gets. And in my opinion, the most important thing here is that he fill a major need for a pass rushing outside linebacker that the Patriots simply do not have. So once again, I'm getting excited here. I'm getting a little overzealous in my desire to see Myles Garrett in a Patriots uniform. You, my man, are our resident voice of reason. You talk me off the ledge when it's needed to be done. Is there something I'm not seeing here when it comes to pursuing Myles Garrett? Because if I'm the New England Patriots, this is a call you have to make.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they absolutely have to kick the tires on this one, I think. You know, he's arguably one of the best players in the NFL on defensively. You know, and like you said, he's been productive every year he's been in the league. He still has plenty of tread left on the tires, and they have plenty of money to go after him. Plus, he fulfills a position of need. So do Do you have to, make that call and see what they're wanting? Absolutely. Will he want to come to New England? That's the part that I'd be I'd be a little less optimistic about, because I think one of the reasons why he wants to leave Cleveland is he wants to go to a winner. He wants to play for a Super Bowl. He wants to play deep in the playoffs.
Right.
Are the Patriots going to be doing that next year? We don't know. They have a long way to go. But, he also, had some contact with Mike Vrabel this past year. So now I'm kind of looking at it well, the seesaw is going back and forth, and now it's going back up a little bit. Vrabel was there last year helping the, Cleveland Browns out. So yeah, even though he was working with the offense, him and Garrett had to have some interaction at some point. So, I mean, I absolutely think they should go all in on this. And whether or not, Garrett, decides he wants to come to New England, I think that will be the driving factor in this, because they can offer, some compensation that Cleveland might not get from other teams. But if you're Myles Garrett, you want to go play for Kansas City or Buffalo or, whoever, right? That's going to be a really strong draw for him. So they might have to sweeten the pie, and by all means do it. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's one of the best edge rushers in the league, so absolutely. I'm all on board with this one.
Yeah, I'm on board with it as well. But again, as our resident voice of reason, I think you bring up some points that our fan base really should be keeping a sharp eye on. First of all, is this a situation where Myles would want to come in here and wait a year or two for the Patriots to become the type of perennial contender that they were in years past? There's no guarantee of that. I know there's also no guarantee that the Patriots are going to be, cellar dwellers this year. Who knows? Things happen in the NFL all the time. A couple of players here and there, a new coach, a new philosophy, and all of a sudden, if these players are playing at a high level, they can find themselves in contention. This AFC East is not going to be as ominous, I believe, as it has been the last couple of years. Buffalo Bills are still going to be the kings of the mountain until someone knocks them off. And if they're going to be interested in Myles Garrett, like you said, I think that is something that really could tip the scales in their favor. But we don't know what the Jets are going to look like this year. The Dolphins right now may be poised for some turnover on that roster. So all of a sudden, a couple of moves here and there, and you can find yourself in contention. The Patriots may be able to play that card. If in fact they do, the other factor becomes money. Are the New England Patriots going to shell out the type of money that Myles is going to want? Because it's not just about draft capital. It's also about what he's going to want beyond that draft capital to come in here. You assume he's going to be looking for a pretty strong deal. And that's probably going to target him in the average of about $34 million a season, which is what Nick Bosa is making out in San Francisco. That's probably going to be his benchmark. And it's hard to argue against his being worth that price, considering the numbers that he's able to put up. But from an immediate contractual standpoint, and again, I want to give a tip of the cap to my good friend Bernd Buckmaster of Pat's Pulpit, and of course, our good friend, the only man who we trust when it comes to salary information, my good friend Miguel Benzon, who, folks, will be joining us here on these airwaves later this week. Stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss that. We're going to talk a little more Myles Garrett on that night. But according to Miguel and according to Bernd, his cap hit in 2025 only $4.96 million. That's very feasible for a team with $130 million in cap space available. There would be no remaining guarantees in his contract, which is set to void in 2027. So from a logistics standpoint, yeah, the Patriots can absolutely take this on. But again, are they going to want to commit that type of contract extension and that type of money to him long term? Yeah, I think there's an argument to be made for it. I think there's an argument to be made against it. And I think that leads me quite nicely into my next question for you here, Steve, is we kept hearing from Elliott Wolf last year that this is going to be a team that's going to be a draft and develop squad. You want to maintain as much draft capital as possible to build this team, a young core. In order to acquire someone like a Myles Garrett, they're going to have to give up an awful lot of draft capital to do it, maybe even the number 4 overall pick if Cleveland digs in its heels and says, hey, look, yeah, we'll deal him to you, but we want that shiny number 4 pick that you got and really bolster our ability to really put this team in contention sooner rather than later. If Cleveland does do that and they demand the kitchen sink, so to speak, do the Patriots still have an obligation to go through with this, or do they put their hands up and say that might be a little bit too rich for our blood right now?
Yeah, I wouldn't give that number 4 pick for Garrett. I'd be willing to maybe part with that second round draft pick. Because that's going to be a high pick,
Right.
And if the Patriots do, in fact, decide to keep the pick and trade back, they'll probably get a second round pick in return. So then you have to balance, okay, what can we pick up realistically in the draft? And we already know what Garrett could bring to the defense, and it is a big position of need. So, I mean, if I could be talked into a second round pick, I wouldn't give him that number 4, though. I think that's a little too rich at this point, because he, although he's only 29, he probably only has about 4 to 5 really good more years. And then you have to start looking at stuff down the road. But if you give up a second round pick for 4 to 5 years of Myles Garrett, I think that's doable. And that would depend on Cleveland, how bad he wants to leave and what they think they can get for him. Because I guarantee you, the top teams that will be in the mix of this, they won't be offering a second rounder. They'll be offering something lower. They might offer a third and a fifth or something like that, but they're not going to offer a first or a second. They can wait Cleveland up.
That's a good point, and it does put the Patriots in a position of advantage, and that's why stockpiling draft capital is so important in this league. And again, you mentioned it is going to depend on Cleveland. It's going to depend on their wants. I think it's also going to depend on the Patriots and how they see themselves in terms of a rebuild. Do they think that by going all in and pushing a lot of those draft capital chips on the table to get Myles Garrett, it's going to put them over the top? Yeah, they might go ahead and want to do that. If they're sure that Christian Barmore is going to suit up at some point next year, then he's going to be a guy taking the double team away from someone like Myles Garrett. That could be very interesting to watch. We saw what Matthew Judon was able to do when Christian was taking the double teams in front of him, freeing him up to be able to get after the quarterback. Someone with Myles' talent could be lethal in this type of a defense. It's going to depend on the type of defense Terrell Williams wants to run, but I can't see any strategy that wouldn't somehow employ those two working in tandem to be a pass rush menace in this league, and they would immediately become one. And that leads me quite nicely into my final question for you today, Steve, and that the outside linebackers position obviously has been a struggle for the Patriots. I like Anthony Jennings almost as much as you, not quite as much, folks, because nobody likes Anthony Jennings as much as my good friend Steve Balestrieri. But I do like Anthony an awful lot, and I think he's a better run defender than a pass rusher. So I think that's more of his natural fit. How do you see a move like this benefiting those types of players? Because it's not just about only getting after the quarterback. When you have that dynamic pass rusher, it can strengthen your run defense as well.
Oh, absolutely, because they know that Myles Garrett is coming. I mean, and I think under this defense, you'll see Jennings come a lot too. I think they're going to be more aggressive. They're going to be attacking, the outside, inside. I mean, they're going to be attacking the run game. So, I think, and playing opposite Myles Garrett would boost Anthony Jennings' numbers a little bit, because they're going to put guys on him and they're going to leave Jennings kind of, one-on-one with whoever's left. And, plus you have Keon White in the mix. So,
right.
I think bringing on a guy like Garrett would be so beneficial to this defense, because as we saw last year, they could not get consistent pressure on the quarterbacks and they couldn't get home. And, this guy is going to bring it. And he's done it his entire career. I think he would fit in well with Terrell Williams, what, he wants to do defensively. So, I'm all on board this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on the field, I don't think there's anybody that wouldn't be on board. Who wouldn't want to add Myles Garrett? He's the type of defender you reconfigure a defense to fit. He's got that talent, and he's simply at that level. So, from an on-field perspective, yeah, I don't think there's anybody that would be against it. From a contractual standpoint, yeah, in the short term, the Patriots absolutely have the money. No excuse why they couldn't bring him in here day one. It's going to be about the long-term commitment. And ultimately, that really is the deciding factor here. Do the Patriots want to commit long term? I think a more important question to ask is, does Myles want to commit long term to being in New England? Could be a couple of years, could be a little bit more until the Patriots are viable again as a contending team in the AFC. According to Myles' statement, he wants to win. It's not just about record books. It's about winning championships and winning Super Bowls. That's the big reason why he wants out of Cleveland. It's not because he's unhappy where he is or doesn't like his surroundings. He wants to go to a place where he's going to win and win now. That could be the deciding factor against this for the New England Patriots if things don't turn around soon. But, Steve, Myles Garrett is not the only big-time star right now that finds himself on the trade market. Los Angeles Rams wide receiver Cooper Kupp feels that he will be continuing his career elsewhere in 2025. Of course, the question we're all asking is, why not in New England? Well, there are reasons why not in New England, but there are reasons why in New England as well. In just a moment, Steve Balestrieri and I are going to discuss Cooper Kupp potentially to the Pats when this episode of the Locked On Patriots podcast continues, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On listeners, the big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, Prize Picks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least two players' projections, and if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. Prize Picks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard to win. Pair that with one or more correct pick, and you're cashing out. This week, I'm looking at the board and selecting more for Travis Kelce on receiving yards and more for a quarterback's passing yardage. But what I really love the most about Prize Picks, fast, safe withdrawals. When I win, my cash is in my account in as little as 15 minutes. So don't delay, do it today. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Patriots fans, thank you once again for joining us here today on Locked On Patriots as we take a deeper dive into the Patriots trade possibilities. And we're playing a game of should they or shouldn't they. I say we because joining me here today is my good friend, columnist extraordinaire at PatsFans.com, one half of the hosting tandem of Patriots 4th and 2. He's our resident voice of reason, my Patriots paisan, Steve Balestrieri. Steve, in the previous segment, we talked about the potential of the Patriots acquiring Cleveland Browns defender extraordinaire Myles Garrett, who by his own admission may indeed be on the trade market. Now, Cleveland has not officially stated that they're going to acquiesce to Myles' request. That right now is still very much a fluid situation. Cleveland would like to keep him in-house, but Myles seems determined to go out and test the waters elsewhere, especially those waters that would land him in contention for a Super Bowl. So does that mean the Patriots are out of the race, or are they right in it? Logistically, they have all of the tools necessary to make this deal work. Well, if in fact offense is your thing and you think the Patriots should put more chips on the table to acquire an offensive weapon, well, a pretty good one became available, or at least we think became available on Monday as well. LA Rams wide receiver Cooper Kupp has revealed that Los Angeles is actually looking to trade him. And I quote Cooper directly from his statement. I was informed that the team will be seeking a trade immediately and will be working with me and my family to find the right place to continue competing for championships. I don't agree with the decision. Always believed it was going to begin and end in LA. Still, if there's one thing I have learned over the years, there are so many things that are out of your control, but it's how you respond to these things that you will look back on and remember. Steve, naturally, Patriots fans are going to see Cooper Kupp available. We know the longing that Patriots fans have had for a true bona fide number one receiving option. Most of the fan base is salivating for it. They need it. They're craving it. And of course, it only stands to reason that a lot of the attention of Patriots Nation right now is on Cooper Kupp and potentially bringing him into New England. We talked a little bit about this in the previous segment when it came to Myles Garrett and a player wanting to go somewhere to compete for a championship. Cooper was very clear on that in his statement. However, we know that ultimately money can do the talking in almost any situation. So you have a reasonable approach to this. We need to pull upon our resident voice of reason here, but when you look at this situation, taking Myles Garrett out of the equation, solely focusing on Cooper Kupp, what are your thoughts on Kupp's availability, and do the Patriots have a shot here to potentially make this work?
Oh, I think they do. For one, I'm sure if the Rams are going to trade him, they'd prefer him to go outside the NFC. And, if you're Sean McVay, you worry less about Cooper Kupp coming back to haunt you with New England than you would at, say, another AFC team like the Chiefs or the Bills.
Yeah,
Those are the two I'm kind of throwing out there because
exactly.
I could see both teams making a move for either one of these guys, right?
Right.
So therein lies the rub. Okay, so I think the opportunity for them, sure. Again, it's going to be there. Whether or not Kupp wants to come to the Patriots, same deal with, that we just spoke about with Myles Garrett. He wants to go to a franchise that's winning. And I will say this, if he was to come to New England, even though he had a very down year for his standards in 2024, he still would have been the leading receiver on the Patriots.
Yeah.
And he automatically becomes the best wide receiver by a large margin on New England. But that being said, I'm not as warm to this one as I was with Garrett. I just think, he's had some injury concerns. And last year could just kind of worried me a little bit. Is those injuries starting to take a toll on him? Because if they weren't, why would the Rams be willing to trade him? That's a question that's burning in my mind. I know why Garrett wants out. He wants to get out of Cleveland. It's been, a losing situation for him his entire career there. But why are the Rams willing to let Cooper Kupp go? And that kind of worries me, which makes me very leery about making this deal.
Very good point. And I'm glad that you made that because in the interest of playing devil's advocate, I like to end on a high note, Steve. We're going to do that in just a moment, but I'll play devil's advocate for a moment and I'll talk about the reasons why maybe this might not be the smartest pursuit for the New England Patriots. Kupp is on the north side of 30. That tends to be a difficulty for any receiver. You start to break down it's just the natural way things go. He appeared in 12 games last season, 12 in 2023, and just 9 in 2022 due to injuries. So it's fairly safe to say that his days as an everyday durable receiver that's going to give you 16, 17 games, 18 games into a season, if you want to include playoffs into that as well, are probably behind him. You're probably going to have to factor in that he's going to miss some time. And if that is indeed the case, are you willing to go to levels that you need to go to in order to acquire him? Because let's face it, the other factor here is, folks, always comes back to it, money. If you're the team that's going to trade for Cooper Kupp, you're going to inherit a $20 million salary this season in 2025 and a $19.85 million contract in 2026. Now, I understand that both he and the team can renegotiate that. So there are ways around it. The team can circumvent that if they try. But that could end up turning some teams off. And again, for the Patriots, it's not really about the money. They've got at least 120 million in salary cap space. So at this point, money is not really a huge concern, but really becomes about the type of commitment you want to a 31-year-old receiver with injuries. If I'm the Patriots brass, I'm really paying very close attention to the medical reports that are available on Cooper Kupp over the last 2, 3, even 4 seasons. You want to be absolutely sure that those 12 games that he's played these last few years are the absolute minimum that he's going to play for you each and every year. You want him out there even more than that, if possible.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the other is, the fact that, as you mentioned at the outset today, right? They want to keep draft capital. And again, it's not the money that he's due because they can swallow that easy
Right.
with the cap space they have. But do you want to give up draft capital to a guy for a guy, I should say,
Mm,
that might only be around for 12 games or less?
mm-hmm.
I don't know. These are the things that make me leery about this. Now, with Myles Garrett, I mean, he's shown he's still, the apex up here of
Right.
his career. And I'm not so sure about Cooper Kupp. Now, that being said, as we talked about, he would automatically still be the best wide receiver on this team by a large margin.
Yeah.
And I think he would work great with Drake May. It's just, I'm not sure of the return, for a whole season. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm getting at there?
Right.
It's just it makes me leery. I think, and I mean, you could say for the money, I'm not sure he's worth it, even though the money wouldn't be the driving issue for the Patriots.
Once again, it's going to come down to his type of fit in New England. He'd fit very well in a Josh McDaniels offense. I think Josh would be salivating to try to work with a guy as capable as Cooper Kupp. Last season, 12 games, of course, but still had 67 catches, 710 yards, 6 touchdowns. Those numbers are not going to illuminate the stat sheet on a national level, but when you consider the injuries and the time he missed, still, he's able to give you production. And of course, if you want to take a look at his last fully healthy season in 2021, that really is where you see the true Cooper Kupp. Led the league in receptions with 165, receiving yards, same deal, 1,947 and 16 touchdowns. So this guy's capable of putting up big numbers with a big-time quarterback, with a young, hungry quarterback like Drake May, who desperately needs a solid, reliable target. Cooper, when he's healthy, is as reliable and as good as they come in the NFL. So, yeah, I think this is another call that the New England Patriots at least have to make. Whether it's going to happen or not is going to be up to the Patriots and their commitment level. And ultimately, it's going to come back to the same thing it came to with Myles. Is Cooper Kupp willing to come to New England and give the Patriots time to earn their way back into contendership? If he does, yeah, this could be the beginning of a beautiful friendship, Steve. If not, yeah, this could get ugly really quickly. But, Steve, one thing we are sure about, whether Cooper Kupp is going to be in the receivers room or not next season, Patriots are going to have a new voice at the helm. Longtime assistant coach and highly decorated offensive assistant Todd Downing is on his way to New England. The only thing is, he's going to coach a position he's never coached before. Is that yet another problematic situation for the New England Patriots? Are they going to regret leaving someone like Wes Welker on the table? Or could this be a sign of Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel ready to work some magic? Steve and I are going to talk about Downing to the Patriots when this episode of the Locked On Patriots podcast wraps up right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Listen up, Locked On listeners. Are you looking for tickets to your next big event? Maybe you're looking for last-minute tickets to the big game this weekend. Whether it's a concert, a comedy show, or a sports game, finding the right ticket at the right place can be a headache. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app does the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. I've been using Game Time Picks for a while now, and here's why I love it. I recently grabbed a super deal for a prime seat, and I couldn't believe the value. And their seat view feature is a game changer. Before I even hit buy, I can see exactly what my seat will look like right in the venue. And the best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Ready to make your next event even better? Download the Game Time app and create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So again, that's code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Patriots fans, thank you once again for joining us here today on Locked On Patriots. And joining me is our resident voice of reason, Steve Balestrieri of PatsFans.com. Steve has helped to talk us off the ledge when it comes to the Patriots' pursuit of either Myles Garrett or Cooper Kupp when it comes to the trade market. A lot of Patriots fans are getting excited about big names coming to Foxborough, but it's always wise to enter these situations, folks, with a little bit of temperance and a level head. And that's why we have our resident voice of reason here, and he does it better than anybody. But, Steve, one thing we know for certain is that Mike Vrabel is assembling his crew, and he's nearly done with that. We expect a lot of these hires to become official within the coming days, but the last big domino on Vrabel's coaching staff has apparently fallen. Multiple outlets now have reported that the Patriots are expected to hire Todd Downing as their new wide receivers coach. And Downing's arrival makes some sense. This is yet another coach that is coming in with ties to Mike Vrabel in their days together in Tennessee. And Downing has plenty of experience coaching on the offensive side of the ball. He's pretty much coached all over the offense, but one area he's never coached is wide receivers. He's never held that title before, and that is interesting to say the least, especially when it comes to the Patriots, who will be undoubtedly looking for upgrades at the position, not just personnel-wise, but also production-wise. This is not exactly the best unit when it comes to on-field production for the New England Patriots. A lot of new faces are probably going to be walking through the door. Maybe that includes the player we just talked about in the previous segment, Cooper Kupp. Maybe it includes a free agent or a trade target, someone like a T. Higgins, maybe, Amari Cooper. These guys are available. But in any case, Downing is going to be the guy that's going to be coaching these guys. So, Steve, again, we need your reason. We need your wisdom and counsel here. What are your thoughts on the Downing hire, and what do you think it means for the Patriots offense?
Well, I think it was very surprising when I heard this. Last season, he was with the Jets. He was the quarterback's coach and passing game coordinator. Okay. But, you know, when he was in Tennessee with Mike Vrabel, he was his offensive coordinator for 2 years. He was also an offensive coordinator with the Raiders. So you're talking about a guy that's been overall in charge. So in that aspect, I'm not really too worried about the fact that he's going to coach wide receivers per se, because he's had to deal with that as an offensive coordinator. He's also coached tight ends, you know, in the past. In fact, when Vrabel first brought him on in Tennessee, he was a tight ends coach. And so, yeah, no, I'm not too worried about that. What I do like is that they're bringing in another guy with a ton of experience, you know, on the offensive side of the ball. Now, you know, Josh has basically a head coach in Doug Marrone, an offensive coordinator and their tight ends guy, and now an offensive coordinator with a wide receiver guy. So, I mean, when you combine all that talent and, you know, that experience, it's bound to change the way things are being done there. And I think these guys can all get on the same sheet of music. But at the same time, I look at this Downing hire as a little bit of insurance, because he hired Josh McDaniels, but there's been talk that maybe the game has passed Josh by. Well, having Downing there is insurance against that very thing, right? Because if Josh, doesn't put it together, which I don't think is going to happen, but if it happened, he could elevate Downing right there because he's
Mhm.
worked with them and now he's on the staff. So that's you have to look at it different layers, as Shrek says, like an onion. So I think that's part of the reason too. I mean, but you look at all the experience now, Doug Marrone, Grant, now Downing. I mean, man, these guys are going to have a very experienced staff. So there's no reason why the coaching should be an issue next year.
Very good point. And I'm glad that you mentioned some of Downing's positives because definitely, folks, if you look at the resume, he clearly has them. I love the fact that he's coached tight ends. You and I have both said before that tight ends coaches essentially can make some of the best versatile offensive coaches, including offensive coordinators, because they have to have their hand in everything. They have to be able to coach receivers. Let's face it, tight ends have largely become receivers in this league. There are still a select few that still play the position the way the football gods intended it to be played, as I said yesterday here on Locked On Patriots. And then you have those that go out and catch passes and try to catch records, one of whom is playing this weekend. Bottom line, Steve, you do still have, though, the ability to coach receivers, to coach pass catchers. So I think that right then and there is going to give Todd Downing the opportunity to make an impact here. He's coached quarterbacks. He's been an offensive coordinator. He has a level of familiarity with Mike Vrabel. And again, I think this is important. If you're looking at someone who has an alpha voice in this room, like Josh McDaniels, who's going to command immediate respect, independent of the head coach, if you're the head coach, you still want one of your guys in there. You still want someone with senior level capability, like you said, a guy who's called plays before. Downing called plays, obviously, in Tennessee. He called them last year with the Jets after the Robert Saleh and Nathaniel Hackett fiasco that happened there in New York. Downing was the guy that was elevated to a play caller for a period of time. So he is someone with a good amount of experience on the offensive side of the ball. The one thing I worry about when it comes to Todd Downing coming in is the Patriots have to be sure that the receivers are ready to come out and come out strong. Because if this receivers group once again looks to be malaised or they look to be sluggish, if they're not productive, if these guys are running the wrong routes or looking ill prepared, you know as well as I that this fan base, in the time it takes to boil an egg, are going to be clamoring for Wes Welker and say, this wouldn't have happened if we hired Wes. I can almost hear it. And to be totally honest with you, I can't necessarily blame the fan base for feeling that way because they want productive receivers here. It's been so long since they've had a reliable pass-catching core as a whole. They've had guys come in, bits and pieces that have done their job, but it's been a while since there's been confidence in the Patriots receiver group as a whole. Do you think this could potentially be the Patriots setting themselves up for even more controversy if, in fact, Downing doesn't work out?
Oh, absolutely. Because, Wes Welker is, he's an icon here, right?
Mm-hmm.
He lit it up the seasons he was with New England as a wide receiver. So, he's a popular guy. And when, a lot of people were rejoicing when they heard the fact that New England had, in fact, interviewed him for the position.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people had already penciled him straight into that.
Yeah.
And I will admit that I was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I figured that was
too.
going to happen. But it also, Derek Havens and I were talking just yesterday. And I said, I'm wondering why they haven't named a coach yet. And, the fact that they said, well, we interviewed Wes, but they're not announcing him makes me think that he's not going to get it. And so we'll have to see. But, as soon as a wide receiver's in the wrong spot, when May throws the ball or one drops the ball, you're going to hear those screams for Wes on social media immediately. It's going to happen, So
Absolutely. this does potentially set the Patriots up for some criticism, and not only because it was Downing over Welker. I don't want to just make it seem like, oh, Patriots fans just wanted Wes and nothing else. If I'm being very honest, I think if Todd Downing had the resume line item of wide receivers coach next to him at some point, maybe fans might be a little bit more forgiving. I'm not saying that it's right, and I'm not saying that it's wrong. I happen to be in your camp. I think that it doesn't really make that much of a difference considering his experience all around the offense, but it leaves him wide open for criticism because of not having held the title before. So bottom line, folks, Mike Vrabel continues to make changes here in New England. Will his choice of wide receivers coach be the right choice? Will it be the wrong one? Or does it really just depend on the personnel on the field? These are all questions that we're going to continue to answer here on Locked On Patriots. And when we do so, we usually bring along our resident voice of reason for the ride. And I definitely want to thank you, Steve, for joining me today, lending your wit, your intellect, and of course, your insight the way only you can. In the meantime, I'm Mike Debate. And on behalf of my good friend, Steve Balestrieri, I remind all of you to stay safe, to stay well, to be the change you wish to see in the world. Have a great day, everyone. And we'll see you back here again tomorrow on Locked On Patriots.